city residential general plan land use designation exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 15303, Class 3. Mr. Buggard, would you please share your screen and present your report?
Yes, one moment. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Buggart, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. Today, we're here to talk about 469 Toyon Drive for a use permit for a retaining wall over 6 feet in height. Some background on the project: 469 Toyon Drive is an existing 2-story single-family dwelling in a low-density residential land use area with R18 zoning in a developed neighborhood. The proposed project, the zoning ordinance for the city requires that a use permit is approved for a retaining wall over 6 feet in height, especially in residentially zoned lots. The total height of the retaining wall would be 8.5 feet above grade, and the length of it would be approximately 40 linear feet, or roughly half of the lot width. This would be in response to a slide that occurred during the prior year rainy season. Here is the site survey of the property, and the scoured area is in this lowered area here. And the retaining wall would be placed across this area, protecting a portion of the backyard and an existing patio in the back. As mentioned before, it would be approximately 40 feet long, and there would be downspouts for drainage to help with water flow. Piles would be constructed into the earth with concrete exteriors and H beams coming up, and there would be slats of wood between each of the H piles. Similar to here, this is what would be visible above ground, approximately 8 feet visible from the downhill side. For a aesthetic comparison, there was an example provided of what the result would look like from a photo taken at Pacific Street and Bartolomeo Way. Findings required by the zoning administrator is that the proposed use is in accordance with the objectives of the zone. The retaining walls exceeding 6 feet in height are permitted in the R1 zone by conditional use permit, and the general plan land use map allows for this use with a use permit. The proposed project would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, and would not be detrimental to properties or improvements in the vicinity. The retaining wall would provide stability for the homeowner and promote safety of the hillside and preservation of the structure and backyard improvements. It would be located entirely on the project site and would not increase service water flows to adjacent lots. And it has been designed by a licensed engineer and requires a building permit as well, along with their approvals. The final finding that must be made is that the proposed use would comply with any specific conditions, and the conditions for this project include those recommendations of the project biologist report that was prepared for this project and the geotechnical engineer. With that, the recommendation from city staff is that the zoning administrator approve the use permit with conditions. Here are some photos of the rear of the site where the retaining wall would be placed. With that, that concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant and property owner, I believe, are here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buggart. My question is, was there an archaeological report prepared? This is the portion of the retaining wall, and the outfall would be located in a highly sensitive archaeological area as mapped in the City of Monterey Plan Environmental Impact Report.
A archaeological report was not initially requested of the applicant, as the majority of the site was located outside of the archaeological area, though it is noted that the southern portion of the site is within that sensitive archaeological area.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant or owner like to make a presentation?
I wasn't planning on it, but if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. Get into some specifics, but would you like me to talk about it?
I don't have any specific questions.
I can just say that we.
Oh, could you,
Can we go there?
yeah, can you
All right, sure.
make sure that the mic is on? And state your name.
Sure. My name is Jack Camp. I'm the applicant for this project. I guess the only things, without getting too technical, that I share is that this style of wall provides the least amount of disturbance within this area to construct a wall of this height. In addition to supporting the backyard, there's also a deck that's directly adjacent, is attached to the house. The house is directly adjacent, so it's really arguably supporting the house and leaving it without a retaining wall really puts the development in jeopardy. We explored, other options. It wasn't just like, let's do this, talk to the geotech, talk to the contractor, and really just ended up circling back to this style of wall. Another reason why this style of wall was really the option is because there is layers of clay, which most likely contributed to this situation occurring. That there's a structural section or a site section showing what the geotech came back with from their borings, and there's the top layer of earth is like fill, right? So they brought it in to kind of fill in this natural landscape to make the backyard. And then there's a lean clay layer, which is a couple feet thick below that fill layer. And then below that is the fat clay layer. And the fat clay is what the geotech required us to embed the wall's foundation into. I think he wanted like 8 feet of embedment, which is not going to be an easy task to accomplish. Any other wall would be almost impossible to be able to excavate that much earth while not jeopardizing the house even more. So these will be bored with a drill rig directly in, and so you'll pull out spoils, right, from that drilling process, but there won't be any like excavators digging trenches and moving massive amounts of dirt. It'll just be drilling in, pulling out, and then getting that dirt up the hillside to export out. And then the drainage systems aren't really going to be conveying a lot of water. It's really just that backyard area, just to make sure that there's a drainage system behind the wall that's got rock with fabric wrapped around it, so it doesn't get impacted with sand or anything over its years. That drainage system is really just like the fail safe, that'll get water out from behind the wall if water gets back there. What really is providing a protection for that drainage system behind the wall is the surface drainage. So there's a pipe for the wall drainage system, which shouldn't really be conveying a lot of water at all, because most of that water should be getting caught by the surface drain coming down its drop inlet and then having its own outfall with riprap rocks so it doesn't erode. And again, it's only conveying that backyard area, which really isn't much. It's not going to be generating a lot of flow, but regardless, there'll be constructed measures to be sure that we're not going to end up eroding ground into the stream and, you know, causing whatever kind of environmental impact that would maybe have. But yep, that's about it.
So the erosion that happened in the rainy season, did that expose the fat clay layer that you mentioned?
You know, I think I think that if you look at that scarp, it does. Let me look at this. Let me see where we're at here. No, we didn't get down into. We only got into the lean clay. Sorry, it's lean clay and stiff clay. It was
Oh, stiff.
stiff clay. Actually, and I remember now. So he wanted us to get 8 feet below the stiff clay, which ends up penetrating into the decomposed granite zone, which is really kind of like the bedrock below that. So, but no, the scarp stayed above the stiff clay. It didn't get down to that level.
Okay.
It seemed like the water that caused this, it wasn't over the land water and the land giving way. It was water that was under the ground and coming out of the hillside. And then because of that amount of water just ejecting out the side of this already natural, like not a cliff, but you know, a significant grade down to the stream or seasonal drainage or whatever you want to call it. That water was coming out of that natural hill cut, and that's what caused it to sort of get undermined. And then the slowly the backyard went down with it. They actually saw it happening. They have like a binder full of sequential photos of slowly the yard just the fence. Anyway.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anyone else in the chambers like to make a comment? Is there anyone online who would like to make a public comment?
There are still no attendees online.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public comment period and I will make a few remarks. So the staff report. So every action made by a City of Monterey decision maker is required to go through the California Environmental Quality Act process. And the agenda report for this project has the first page of it, it discusses the environmental determination for the project. And the staff's recommendation is that this project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And it cites Article 19, Section 15303, Class 3. And if you go through the different, if you read through the paragraphs of the environmental determination, you'll see that there's a paragraph called Exception F, Historical Resources. And in order for a project to be exempt under CEQA, it cannot have significant environmental impacts related to historical resources. However, the staff report says that the site is not located within an archaeologically sensitive location as identified on the general plan EAIR archaeological sensitivity map. However, this is inaccurate. The site the lower half of the site, which is where the retaining wall and the outfall would be built. That part is located in an archaeologically sensitive location. And so we haven't evaluated all potential environmental impacts. Usually we require an archaeological report to be prepared. And Mr. Camp mentioned that the retaining wall footings would have to go into the stiff clay, and that stiff clay has not been eroded. And so there is a potential for archaeological deposits to be present in the stiff clay. And so because these potential effects have not been studied, I cannot make a decision on the project today. So this item then is tabled to a date uncertain until these environmental effects have been studied. So that's the conclusion. Okay. We have another public hearing item. This is, let me read it. Item number 4, consider 2 Upper Ragsdale Drive, use permit application UP 240062 to allow mobile food vending on private property exceeding 2 hours. Applicant Brett Silvestri, owner Community Hospital Properties, IR 150 D2 ES zoning district, Industrial Administration and Research District with Development Control and Emergency Shelter Overlays, Industrial General Plan Land Use Designation, exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 15301, Class 1. Mr. Buggard, are you going to present another report?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Uh, Good afternoon. Today we're here to talk about 2 Upper Ragsdale Drive for a mobile food vending long-term private property use permit at today's zoning administrator hearing. Some background on this property. 2 Upper Ragsdale Drive is a medical campus and includes parking lots. It has an industrial land use with a IR 150 D2 ES zoning classification for Industrial Administration and Research District with certain development standards and an emergency shelter overlay. The proposed use at the site is for the Power Plant LLC mobile food vending vehicle with owner Charles Drake. The anticipated schedule would be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, and the menu consists of prepared foods, prepackaged foods, and drinks for sale to visitors and employees at the medical campus. There would be shared waste receptacles and restrooms with the medical campus in nearby buildings and on the exterior. And the Power Plant LLC mobile food vending vehicle has a active Monterey County Health Department permit and City of Monterey business license. The originally provided photos of the cart are included here. The trailer would be confined to a location that is between 2 of the major buildings in a already concrete walking area. And since they currently have a private property mobile food vending permit and would like to extend it from just 2 hours to this longer period that was mentioned on the aforementioned slide, this is how it looks at the site. findings required of the zoning administrator is that the proposed use is in accordance with the objectives of the zoning ordinance. And staff has found that the proposed use meets all IR zoning district land use regulations, and that the mobile food vending vehicle would not cause excessive noise or odors because all operations would be conducted within the vending vehicle, and no permanent fixtures would be put on the site. The proposed project would not be detrimental to public health, welfare, or neighbors of the use. The entire food vending operation would be confined to that property, including patron queuing. It is a very large property, including the smaller parcels within it. And all garbage and materials from the vending vehicle would be disposed of properly on site. The final finding is that the proposed use would need to comply with any conditions, and those conditions limit the hours of operation as to those being proposed and its location on the property. And the use would be subject to those conditions. With that, the finding from staff is that a recommendation from staff is that the zoning administrator approve the use permit with those conditions of approval. With that, that concludes staff's presentation, and I believe one member from that application is here today.
Thank you, Mr. Buggert. I have a question. Does the food truck have a restroom inside, or do they use restroom out somewhere else on the property?
On the property,
Okay, they have access to a restroom.
it is my understanding that they do have access. Yes,
Okay,
and that can be confirmed with the applicant, but yes.
all right. Would the applicant or owner like to make a presentation? Okay. Do we have anyone online who would like to make a public comment?
I still see no attendees online.
All right, so then I will say a few remarks. I reviewed the staff report and the recommended conditions of approval, and I agree that the use would not be detrimental to the site or to the vicinity or to adjacent properties. And they are required, like Mr. Buggert say, they are required to dispose of all garbage and keep the site clean. They have a Monterey County health permit if they're already operating for 2 hours. So they must have sanitation facilities nearby. And therefore, I approve this use permit as presented by staff. This application is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 days of today's action on forms available at the planning office or online. Thank you. Oh, that's it then. We're done. Thank you.